AWA Championship Wrestling. The AWA presents the greatest stars in professional wrestling, bringing you the best in mat action.
Let's talk about Extreme Rules that happened this past Sunday night on the WWE Network for only $9.99. The first match of the night was Neville versus Bad News Barrett. I actually have not seen this match yet. I know it did go over 10 minutes, so good showing. Good place by Neville to actually be picked to replace the injured Daniel Bryan. So Neville's obviously doing something right. He's obviously got the Triple H push coming from NXT. Is he going to be able to do anything with it? Can he further develop his character in the WWE? It's going to be all up to him. He's obviously got the moves. He's got the looks. Does he have the interview skills? I heard that's one of his weaknesses. So, really he's going to have to go out there and prove himself in front of the WWE audience. Next match of the night was the Chicago street fight. Do not mistake it with a New York street fight. Do not mistake it with a Baltimore street fight. But it was the Chicago street fight with Dean Ambrose and Luke Harper. Let me tell you, it almost was like an Iron Man match because the thing almost went an hour, went 56 minutes. Street fight in the PG era, it just didn't work. I thought it was unique that the guys went in the truck and then disappeared for a while. I was really expecting maybe, some flashes of them throughout the city of Chicago fighting, all over the place. I thought, that would have been, it would have been cheesy and predictable. But of course, WWE's not cheesy or predictable. They just had the guys come back all of a sudden and start fighting again and then end the match. It was just odd. I really think WWE could have done more with this. I think that, Monday Night Raw would have been good to maybe show some of the footage of them around the town, or maybe even on the WWE Network have an exclusive of them going around the town fighting in different areas. I just think they kind of dropped the ball. It was a unique idea, getting into the car or truck and disappearing for 30 minutes or whatever, and then coming back. But they could have followed up, I think, a little bit more on it. They should have followed up on it a little bit more and shown some of the brutality out there. But again, how do you have a street fight with somebody not getting busted open? Just my opinion. I know I'm with everybody else in the internet wrestling community. It's just, I don't know. It just, Chicago street fight, you're brutal enough to jump in a car, you're going to fight all over town for 30 minutes, and yet you're still going to come back and look just the same as you did before. So, I think really just kind of a loser of a match. Dolph Ziggler versus Sheamus in the Kiss Me Arse match. Another match that had really great potential. I don't understand why you take Sheamus, who's been on this monster heel run since he's come back for the past few weeks, beating up everybody, trying to develop this new character, and then you have him lose to Dolph. I really think that it should have been more of a Sheamus dominates Dolph, because Dolph can sell like nobody else. Have Sheamus dominate him. And then if you want Ziggler to win, then do a schoolboy roll-up out of nowhere and he wins. I think the one thing they did do right in this match is they took Sheamus at the end and he wouldn't kiss Ziggler's arse. And he ended up, giving them the low blow and then beating him up and then making Ziggler actually kiss his own. So I thought that was good to get his heat back. but the way that the match went, the way that, you know, it really seemed like I don't know. It's like the writers didn't understand, or whoever set up the match didn't understand what Sheamus's character has become. And obviously, you know, that's this really tough guy that can take on anybody and beat up anybody. And, you know, if they're not doing this with him, then why did they even develop this character to begin with? Because he's just going to go back into the obscurity that he already is. So, again, that's just another match I wasn't real happy with. The fourth match of the night was the tag team match for the WWE Tag Team Championship. Surprisingly great match. I actually think that this was the match of the night. The New Day versus Tyson Kidd and Cesaro. I think it was right that the New Day won the championship. I think that was good. It kind of reminded me a little bit of the Honky Tonk Man beating Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. And I'm not calling Tyson Kidd and Cesaro anything like Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. But they were those tag team champions that just seemed like they were going against an underdog that had no chance of winning, and the underdog wins. I think that the heat that New Day is developing is fantastic. I talked about it last time. I think that this fabulous Rougeau tactic that they're using, where they're not really, you know, acknowledging the fans booing them, they're still thinking that they're faces and they're happy and they're, you know, going out there and just having a good time, and then the fans are turning against them and they're a little confused, but then they go back to being happy and having a good time again. I think that's a great direction for New Day. Keep not listening to the fans. Keep thinking that you're the faces in the matches. I think that's going to draw more heat for them. Now that Kidd and Cesaro are on the chase or on the hunt, the chase for the championships, I think it's going to set up some unique matches as well. I don't want to see Tyson Kidd and Cesaro against New Day every single week on my television, on Raw and on SmackDown and on the next pay-per-view. But I'd like to see, you know, break it up in some singles matches. You know, one of New Day versus one of Kidd or Cesaro on, you know, one of the shows. Then set it up, you know, as maybe even a, you know, 6-person, or, you know, involve it that way. Just let's not have it be a tag team match every single week, because there's no reason to have it on pay-per-view if it happens every week on Raw. But again, I think this was the match of the night. I think what I really like about this match is it didn't have any of the stipulations. It didn't have any of those stupid Extreme Rules stipulations on it, so they got to go out there and just work a wrestling match. And they did. They worked a very good professional wrestling tag team match. And I think that's why, again, I liked it so much. This card was full of stipulations, and the match that I feel is the match of the night is the one without any stipulation. The next match on the card was John Cena versus Rusev with Lana, the Russian chain match. I've seen Russian chain matches before, and they are brutal. Any kind of chain match, strap matches, they are brutal. You use the chain or strap as a weapon to beat your opponent senseless in the middle of the ring, outside the ring, all over the, you know, arena. And then when the opponent is so senseless, you're able to drag them from corner to corner as the winner. This was a glorified 13-minute tug of war. That's all they were doing was tug of war. It was stupid. Like, why? It's tug of war. You have Rusev attacking John Cena in the back, you know, leading up to this thing, you know, with the chain around his face, around his nose, beating him up with it. But when it comes down to the match, none of that happens. None of that happens. It's a tug of war. And that was stupid. The lights, they were kind of dumb too. Rusev is red and Cena is green. What? Like, I don't know. It just, to me, the whole feel of it was bad. It's amazing to me to actually think that we live in a wrestling society now where people didn't even know the rules of a Russian chain match. You know, growing up, I grew up, you know, in the 80s, 90s, so, you know, Nikita Koloff, Ivan Koloff, you know, Russian chain matches, the Texas Bull Rope match, you know, they were all part of, you know, they were all there. So, you know, this was like second nature. You know, once I heard it, I was like, okay, cool. But, you know, a lot of people I saw on the internet was like, well, what's a Russian chain match? What's the rules of it? Dude, the rules haven't changed since, you know, the 60s when Ivan Koloff was doing it before. And I don't know if anybody did it before Ivan Koloff. If they did, please tell me. But with this match, it was just, it was just bad. I think with Rusev and Lana, that was a unique turn where the fans were cheering for Lana, and she got up on the ring apron, the steps there for a moment, and acknowledged the wrestling fans. Definitely see a face turn coming for her. Whether they do it as a full face turn where Lana just turns face and goes, in another direction, maybe she starts wrestling, maybe she goes with somebody else, whatever. Or do they do a Macho Man and Elizabeth turn where Rusev stays as the, killer heel and Lana stays as the face, and, Rusev becomes, more abusive towards Lana? I think that would be great because Rusev definitely is going to need something to keep getting more heat on him, since Cena has now beaten him at WrestleMania. And then Cena has beaten him at the Russian chain match, which you would assume, being the Russian, he's supposed to be the favorite in, and this is supposed to be his type of match. Even though the announcers never said that and there was never any build for that, you would think that, Rusev should have been, the clear-cut favorite in the match, but Cena felt like the favorite. Cena felt like he was going to win from the beginning, in my opinion. I never doubted that Cena was going to win this match. But again, I think with the Lana face, the face hints, I think it'd be great if they kept Rusev and Lana together, have Rusev become that abusive boyfriend, and help him develop some more heat again, eventually with a blow-off, either Rusev becoming a fan favorite or them eventually splitting. But I don't think you split them now. I think you let them continue to be together and develop that relationship of animosity between one another. The other match was the Divas match for the Divas Championship, Nikki Bella versus Naomi. I 100% was surprised on the outcome of this one. I thought for sure Naomi was going to win this match. Nikki Bella and Naomi, they put on a pretty decent match. They actually had, a match that was 7 minutes. So looking at the card, that was a pretty average time. It was the least amount of time of any match. But you had other matches, 2 of them only going 9 minutes, 1 only going 10 minutes, and then the rest of them, were over that 13-minute mark. But I think the ladies did an okay job. I think it's bad that Naomi and more people are talking about her new ring music and her new shoes and not really her. So give Divas a chance. I've stated my opinion. I don't care if you have a Divas match on the card or not. Okay, I really don't. Women's wrestling is supposed to be an attraction. It's been an attraction since it first started, except for Glow Championship Wrestling, Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. So really give Divas a chance. I really don't care if they give Divas a chance or not. I think if you really want to give Divas a chance, you give them their own show. Give them their own show on the network for an hour a week. Whether you mix it in with Total Divas and you show a little bit of the backstage and the cattiness and all that kind of stuff, and then you do a match, or you just do a straight up professional sports entertainment show with the Divas. Either way, Nikki Bella, I thought, yes, she has improved. If this is going to be her last, year or last run before she retires, good for her. I'd like to see Brie in the ring more, because I think Brie is obviously the better of the two, but Nikki's really done a good job. So whatever, give Divas a chance. Yay. Roman Reigns and Big Show was the next match. Really had no expectations for this match. I honestly just wanted the match to be over before it even began. They pushed Roman so much on us. Big Show, they push on us forever. But the match turned out pretty good. I was surprised in a lot of the things that happened during the match. The match went surprisingly well. Roman looked really good in the match, as well as the Big Show looked like he was good. They kind of put over the Big Show as a giant, and that's something that they pull out of their hat every couple years. That he's this uncontrollable giant that nobody can match his skills with, nobody can or match his strength with. They did that very well in this match. I think honestly, if you took Big Show out of the equation every single week on TV, and you had him come back almost like an attraction, like a Brock Lesnar type, you could rebuild Big Show into this, killer heel giant that nobody can defeat. And then when they come back and they actually defeat him, make it look bigger. But Roman Reigns did a good job in this match. The table spot was kind of funny at the end, because the only thing I could really think of was the Brock Lesnar table spot. And when Brock did it, the table stayed laying down because nobody could dare pick up the table anymore because it was too heavy. It basically killed Booker T and killed Johnny, the Johnny Laurinaitis. It basically killed JBL and Booker T when Brock flipped it on him. But Roman flips it on Big Show, steps on it, gets the last man standing stipulation, the count of 10, and then the table's right back to where it was before. So I did think that was kind of funny. It just again shows the writers of WWE and the continuity that they don't use when they're writing. They don't remember the last episode that they wrote, and they expect us not to remember that either as professional wrestling fans or part of the WWE universe. But all in all, good match. I'm not going to complain anything about it. I think Roman looked strong, Big Show looked good, and the match went very smooth. Last match of the night was a steel cage match for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. It had Seth Rollins against Randy Orton inside the steel cage with the RKO band. RKO band. Seth Rollins won with an RKO. Yeah, even the announcers were kind of confused that Seth Rollins hit the RKO at the end and got the win. The RKO was banned. Here's the thing. What I was saying before this match, if you're in a steel cage and there's no disqualification, how do you ban a move? Are you going to get disqualified if Orton would have hit the RKO? What's going to happen? Does he get disqualified in a cage match? Because there is no disqualification in a cage match. So the writers, guys, look at the rules. Look at the rules of wrestling. It's like I say, if you had comic book writers, and I'm going to get into that later, if you have comic book writers doing this, they understand rules. Anyway, this match, it's a cage match. It's got, 3 guys outside the ring. You got J&J Security. You've got Kane all outside the ring. There was such a cluster, such a cluster of people just, in and out of the cage, running all around. Cage matches used to mean something. It used to be the end of a feud to keep people out, as well as because the match was going to get so brutal that it was going to, that it just had to be contained inside, like they were 2 wild animals. It was that brutal. And nowadays, cage matches are a lot different. Kane, obviously was going to interfere. Where does his alliance lie? All that kind of stuff. Seth Rollins as champion, I think, he's got that good, that chicken-esque championship thing going on. He talks a big game. He gets in people's faces. And then when the matches happen, he's kind of backing down and, doing whatever he can to win, cheat if he can, cheat his way to victories. It's reminiscent of a Ric Flair as a World Heavyweight Champion or most good heel champions. The only issue is when Flair had his matches, he could win on his own. He didn't always use the Horseman. He didn't always use interference. Yes, he would cheat to win, but he didn't always have to have that outside interference. And I think at this point, being so young in Seth Rollins' career, being so young in this championship reign, it would really help Seth Rollins if he was able to actually have some, clear wins without J&J, without Kane, without all the distractions from the outside. I think, Rollins, they need to put him in there with somebody that can go, have a really good match with Rollins, that's a good 20-minute professional wrestling match, sports entertainment match. Tell some old school, stories while they're inside the ring, work it really well, have it back and forth, and then have Rollins cheat at the end, whether it's the old-fashioned roll of quarters in his hands or he uses a foreign object out of nowhere, something like that, so Rollins can win without J&J handing him, the chair or something like that. Have Rollins, he's the one that thought of it, not J&J, not Kane. Have Rollins be a smarter heel champion, because right now it just seems like he's a heel champion and the guys outside the ring are the ones that are smart. J&J Security are the ones that are setting up the distractions. They're the ones that are setting up all the heel things that Rollins needs to win. And I think Rollins needs to be proven that he's a smart heel in these matches. So, that's my opinion on that. How was the event overall? if I rated the event on an A, B, C, D, F scale, I would say this was a C, C minus. The tag team match really stood out as a good match. Roman Reigns and Big Show stood out as an okay match. The only reason I say it's okay is because my expectations were really, really low on this one. I had really no interest in watching this match. The match they put on was okay. And, you know, even the night that I watched it, I was like, man, this is a good match. This is a lot better than what I thought it was going to be. And then I realized I had that word better in there. And it's a lot better than what I thought it was going to be. That doesn't mean it was a good match. That just means my expectations were so low that if they went out there and both of them acknowledged the fans, that would be better. That would be higher than the expectations I had set forth them. So anyway, I thought that was a decent match. Orton and Rollins, you know, too much outside interference, too much the rules not totally being understood by the announcers, too much of the rules not being understood by the writers. So I didn't really think that match was all that great. The ladies match, Divas match, again, I don't care about the Divas. The Russian chain match was awful. Just absolutely awful. They should have just called it the Russian chain match tug of war, or Russian chain tug of war match. Ziggler and Sheamus, again, I think they did wrong by Sheamus' character. I think they did right, though, at the very end where Sheamus did the low blow and refused to follow the stipulations of the match. Dean Ambrose, Luke Harper, it's just a waste because you had 30 minutes of time where you could have taken some, you know, good pictures or, you know, some good video out there. So all in all, I say a C for Extreme Rules. I also say WWE, it's time to eliminate Extreme Rules. This thing started off as an ECW one-night stand pay-per-view and is, you know, slowly morphed into Extreme Rules. Extreme Rules no longer works in this PG attitude. You don't have street fights. You don't have chain matches. You don't even have really cage matches without a little bit of violence, without a little bit of blood. So, you know, even if you avoid the blood, you still need the violence out there. If this is the one pay-per-view of the year that you go TV 14, TV PG 14, whatever it's called, then that's what you need to do. But being a PG era, it's not working. You need to go ahead and change Extreme Rules. I think they kind of delved into experimenting this week with the King of the Ring. You know what? If you want us to forget about our WrestleMania hangover, then give us a King of the Ring tournament as the next pay-per-view. We're all into King of the Ring. We all like the tournament aspects of it. We'll talk about another tournament here in just a few minutes as I look at my Royal Rumble tournament. Thanks a lot, everybody. I will be right back with more Rocky Top Wrestling reviews. This week on WWE Monday Night Raw, the commentator Booker T and JBL were having a conversation about Neville. They talked about Neville's moniker, the man that gravity forgot. They were talking about the King of the Ring tournament, how there had never been a high flyer in the King of the Ring that had won the King of the Ring before. Booker T made a very insensitive comment that said, when JBL said, well, Owen Hart was a high flyer, and Booker said, well, gravity didn't forget Owen Hart. I think I heard some speculation on the internet this week. Some other podcast looked past what the comment was. They looked at, well, Owen Hart was a high flyer and all this. To me, I think the reason why the flack happened on the internet and the reason, the way I took the comment was when Booker T said gravity did not forget Owen Hart. The only thing I thought about was Owen Hart falling all those many feet from the rafters into the ring and dying. It wasn't like Booker said it maliciously, and you could tell that after Booker said it, he had the same feeling and realized the thought also was about Owen falling. It seemed like an uncomfortable moment for a few minutes on Raw as Booker continued to talk about other things, I think trying to distract from that. But WWE writers, I think again, or whoever's in Booker T's headset, or if it was Booker himself, it was a faux pas, but it's one of those things that they should have acknowledged and apologized about. For fans of Owen Hart, Gravity did not forget him, and it's tragic that that happened. It's also tragic that this comment was made. So, internet, get off Booker T. You could tell he felt bad about it. You could tell he said it as a mistake. But it's one of those things that, again, I think WWE should have acknowledged. Chris Jericho's podcast does not suck. Oh, I gotta say more. Chris Jericho interviewed Stephanie McMahon last night, and what kind of revelations came from it? They liked working with each other. Stephanie got a boob job, and Chris made fun of it. Chris talked about Stephanie's virtue and losing her virginity, and Vince McMahon was okay with it as long as Chris got a good pop from it. Stephanie dated Triple H, and then they broke up, and then they got back together, and Triple H got messed with by the guys in the locker room for the relationship. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got from it. Jericho did, it's a Jericho podcast. That's how Jericho's podcasts are. They're usually just talking about stories from, the past. So Jericho can include himself in whatever the interviewee part of their life. If it's the Usos, then he says, hey, your dad's stink face came from me. I gave him the idea. I gave him the name. If it's Stephanie McMahon, it's, hey, remember that time if it's John Cena, remember when I showed you how to? If it's a musician, it's, let me tell you, blah, 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 sing some random song. That's just Jericho's podcast. Stone Cold's got a much different podcast, and I think it's maybe unfair that we got to see two Stone Cold podcasts where Stone Cold asks tough questions, where Stone Cold asks questions that professional wrestling fans, not sports entertainment, WWE Universe people want to hear, but professional wrestling fans want to hear. He asked the tough questions of Vince McMahon. He asked the tough questions of Triple H. And then you have Y2J come on there and do these little softball questions. They're different podcasts. They're different styles. What style do I like better? Obviously, I like the Stone Cold podcast better. Is Jericho's podcast bad? No, it's different. So am I going to sit here and complain about it? I'm not, because it's what Jericho's podcast is. I listen to Jericho's podcast on Podcast 1, so I know what his podcast is going to be. I like the WWE podcast version with him because he doesn't sing and make us have to listen to a Fozzy song or cowbells. But does WWE need a variety? I think so. I think if you're going to open up this podcast ability, then you need to let other people do it. If a Stone Cold hard-hitting podcast is 1 month, we got the the Y2J soft pitch podcast another month. You got Jim Ross, who wants to talk purely about professional wrestling and talk about the different strategies that are used in booking and his complaints about some of the bookings and his compliments on other bookings and his ideas being shared with somebody. I think that's a good option. If you have Colt Cabana, who is a professional wrestling fan besides being a wrestler, in here, and you have him, asking professional wrestling fan questions, because that's what he does. He takes, some of these guys that, from the past, and he asks them, what it was like in the locker room, with Ric Flair in his heyday, or, what it was like in ECW's locker room, back when Paul E was running it, back in the real ECW. So those are fun questions as well. So I think if you've got all these podcasts out there, you go ahead and use a variety of podcasters, whether you take the guys that are WWE alum, WWE Hall of Fame, or you go out there and you reach out to these Colt Cabanas, you reach out to these other podcasters that are out there. Please don't reach out to Roddy Piper. Rest in peace to Verne Gagne, AWA professional wrestling legend. Passed away this week at 89 years old. Of course, Verne Gagne, the man that he broke away from the NWA back in the early 70s, late 60s to create the AWA. He was actually the first of the promoters to break away from the National Wrestling Alliance during that time period. Setting the stage for others to do the same. As later, Vince McMahon soon left and went and created his WWF, and others followed, of course, Fritz von Erich and all the other great promoters from back in that time that created these great territories, these great promotions throughout the world. So Verne Gagne being a real step above and step ahead as he did that. A great trainer for professional wrestling as he trained people such as the Iron Sheik, Bob Backlund, he had a part of, Ric Flair, Sergeant Slaughter, Hulk Hogan. Verne Gagne started all these guys out. It was almost like if you looked at the Monday Night War and you're familiar with the Monday Night War, how WCW stole established stars from the WWE to create their product. Back then, back in the 80s, WWE pretty much stole the established stars from the AWA to make their product. Hulk Hogan was from there, Mean Gene Okerlund, Bobby the Brain Heenan, the Killer Bees, Jumpin' Jim Bronzell, all from the AWA, really started creating the professional wrestling movement, the first movement in the WWE. So rest in peace, Verne Gagne. We send out our condolences to his family and his friends. He was a great, great showman, a great trainer, and a great person. He will be missed.